is excellent.
That's
I'm really excited.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Is that typical for the show?
Yeah, it is typical. Canada's always been a real strong market for us. We have a show, and I'm doing my first time ever. I'm doing a show in Quebec City.
Okay.
We have Calgary tomorrow with the Calgary Philharmonic at the Jack Singer. And it's weird because I would have thought that, I've done the Southern Jubilee many times. We always do really well there.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, tomorrow, a smaller venue is not doing as well. I mean, in a way that I would have expected it to be sold out completely.
Interesting.
And maybe even the possibility of adding a second, because the capacity there is much smaller, almost, I would say almost by 1,000. This show is completely sold out.
Yeah. Locally, it seems like there's a lot of people who would commute from Edmonton to Calgary to see something like that,
right.
And I wonder if there's
that could be true.
thing there,
I always do the same play. I always do the same run. I always do a show in Edmonton, Calgary,
right.
Vancouver, or in some form. That same run is pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
cool.
It'll be all right. I'm not worried about it.
Cool.
It's good.
Right on.
Cool.
Yeah. So.
Jacob?
Jason. Yeah, Jacob's my colleague.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the guys that are setting up their whatever life booth you're asking for.
Extra Life?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, cool. Is that like a partnership that you guys have, like?
With Extra Life?
Yeah.
I've been working with Extra Life since the beginning.
Cool.
So what we try to do is I try to offer them a space so they can promote their organization. So it's a pretty good organization. So
cool.
Yeah, anytime I can help,
Yeah.
I just got a really sad request, and it only seems like in Canada I get these really sad requests. Like for example, in Vancouver, this one gentleman, he lost his son's battle to cancer, and they had already bought the tickets for Vancouver. And his 17-year-old, he had been to all the shows in Vancouver, and he didn't make it. So sad. And so he has these tickets, and then in his email he's like, the seat will be empty next to me. Would it be possible to do just a dedication of a song to my son? And I said, I'm going to dedicate the whole freaking show to your son. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no kidding.
So I got an image, and we're going to be able to put it up on the big screen.
Oh, that's cool.
Do a little moment of silence for him. I mean, I can't imagine. I'm a father, so.
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine.
Holy cow.
And then when we were in Montreal last time, we had we ran a contest. And it was for the biggest Zelda fan. And it was this young lady who had been battling cancer, and she did this amazing tribute and why she is such a big Zelda fan, and she basically, Zelda has helped her get through her bouts with cancer, and so she was out, and then she went back, and then they went back in. She had to go back in, and she didn't make it, and it was right before the Montreal show. She was supposed to be there, and she had just like a couple days before passed away.
Wow.
And we had to plan this whole thing out. We flew their whole family out from, I think it was in Quebec, but it was not that close to Montreal. It may have been Ontario, actually. But in any case, it was just really heart-wrenching. Mm-hmm. And I got to hang out with the parents, and I was really moved, and it was just like, Zelda really is something that really is one of those things that really, really, it could help you get through some of the challenges like of cancer and what have you.
Totally.
But in Canada, I always seem to get these really emotional, but I'm really excited to be able to do that for that family.
That's really
that'd be
cool.
good. So I'm glad that they contacted me. They contacted the right person.
Yeah.
And they probably weren't expecting to get the response that they did.
Yeah.
I replied directly to it because it came through my newsletter. I have an email database where people can write in and they get filtered, and then they get to me eventually, the ones that I need to respond to.
Right.
And that one got to me, so I'm glad it did, because that way I can really help that family, and I think that'll be a good thing. So it'll be good. I'm glad.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it will be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be good. The concert's amazing. Concert's great. Canada fans are really good too.
Yeah.
Historically, we've always had a great turnout in Canada, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, I guess a little bit about me too, or about us. I don't know how much, was it Kara or somebody? Anyways, so I am the host of a podcast called Nintendo Dads,
Cool.
kind of going back to that father thing, right? And so we have basically we've done over 100 episodes of just, we'll talk about the news of Nintendo. We'll talk about we do a monthly thing called Retro Rewind where we'll the community will pick a game and everybody goes and plays it. The very first one we ever did was Link's Awakening.
Cool.
Right? And so that's kind of, a little bit about what we do. So we just get online every week and chat about things, and yeah, it's pretty fun. So
that is cool.
So I reached out to the community to, see if there's anything they wanted to know about. And just, I kind of looked at the press stuff that I was sent as well. You apparently did you've done other video game. It seems like there's a lot of video game symphony stuff that you've done. What is it about? Why video games? Why video game music? Why? Well, it's a really big question, probably. But
well, I mean, I started my career off in entertainment.
By the way, I should say too, I'm recording for that. It's just I guess full disclosure. Anyway,
I was young when I first came in the business, and I'm born and raised in San Francisco, California, and I came up in the business, and my first real introduction to the corporate world was by working for PlayStation, and I've been playing games since before I can remember. Really dating back to even Pong. I had it. I didn't have it personally, but my uncle had it, and I just remember being a kid going over there and seeing this Pong, and thinking to myself, wow, this is really rudimentary, and then of course Atari came, and then I was like, oh my god, this is now we're getting into some video games, right? And just playing that Commodore, and just what we did in our off time or our downtime when I wasn't playing sports was playing video games with my bros, and then eventually it led to 16-bit Sega Genesis coming out. My dad and I began to really develop a relationship playing video games together. And sometimes my dad would be up till 4 a.m, and I'd come out there and I'd see my dad still playing Sonic the Hedgehog.
I feel like there's an exact story. Yeah. He's my dad.
I didn't want to assume, but yeah.
Yeah, right? Well, the resemblance. Right?
Yeah, you look great, by the way.
Yeah.
I didn't want to assume because, he may not have been your dad. Could have been a brother, or,
We had a Sega, too, and had an experience where the kids got up early in the morning and mom and dad were playing Echo.
Nice.
I've been playing it all night.
Right, I know. And so, very normal family, but, those were the types of things that I cherish. And, and just, as I played and continued to play, I obviously played Zelda on the NES, and I started playing Castlevania, Double Dragon, a lot of the, and some arcade titles too, because we love to go to the arcade. But so my career path led me into working in the video games, through production, and that was kind of it was very beginning of video games really becoming the business, and being based out of San Francisco, which is the home of PlayStation, Foster City. We were able to take them on as a client, and it was really in the very beginnings at E3, and so we just by chance we were handling the PlayStation, and I was doing and working on their booth, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but these are very elaborate booths.
Oh, yeah.
These are multi-million-dollar productions, and I was fortunate enough to be on the ground floor of those, and and kind of the role that I played in that was I was responsible for not only a lot of the content and the media and organizing all that, but playing through, grabbing selects, doing really beginner captures, and of course Final Fantasy. which was kind of I was basically in charge of managing the SquareSoft. At that time, SquareSoft was it was under the PlayStation umbrella as a not a they weren't first party, but they were kind of first party. Because it was the only at that time it was the only console that Final Fantasy was being released on.
Was this like time of like Final Fantasy VII, like that era,
Yeah, exactly. So previously it was only on in Nintendo.
Yeah.
And then it became exclusive on the PlayStation. And so I was fortunate enough to be on that, and that's where I really kind of started getting really involved in doing not only the media side of things and taking care of presentations for them at sales meetings and press events. Then we started getting into other things such as the E3 trade show floor booth, getting all that. So all the content and media that was being developed for that, I was in charge of. And then I was also, it was really cool because I was, the company I was with at the time was also handling all of the parties for PlayStation, which required us to have to procure all the talent. Hence the musical aspect of kind of my professional career. So I always had my hands kind of in this video game thing, and being able to explore that, and then also having my hand in this music side of things, entertainment. And I was doing a lot, and so I started kind of segueing into more so I started working with Luciano Pavarotti. And I started working with the Three Tenors.
Seems like a reasonable place to start, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it just so happened that I was I kind of fell into this thing where I became a production manager for the Three Tenors and Luciano Pavarotti. So like the Saddle Dome, all the arenas. It was arena tour, stadium tours, things like that. But I was always kind of maintaining my relationship with. Because I went out on my own at that time, and then I had taken the Square account with me, and I was managing that relationship outside of the company I was previously with, but I managed to keep that, and so I kept that, and so with that I was still doing the same things that I was doing as part of the company, but that was when Square had departed from PlayStation and got out from underneath their first party, if you will, and they started doing things on their own. So they would do press events, they would do all the things that PlayStation was doing, but on a much smaller scale, and it was pretty much just Final Fantasy. So that was happening, and of course, I also speak Japanese, and I also read and write in Japanese, and I was spending a lot of time in Tokyo, and I did Pavarotti's farewell tour in Japan. So it was at that time that I was kind of marinating on these ideas of trying to do something video game music, but it was never really, it was just kind of a half-baked kind of thing where, in Japan they were doing these types of things, but they were never really doing it with the visual element. And that was where I kind of had an epiphany, and I was like, okay, this might be something that we can do. And so I kind of just started kind of marinating and kind of baking this idea in my head, and then I had an opportunity to present it, and then I had an opportunity to, at the same time, invite guests from Square Enix in Japan, and it was, let me back up, they weren't Square Enix yet, they were Square still, and it was at that time in 2004 that they merged with Square Enix, to become the RPG powerhouse that not only included Final Fantasy, but it included Dragon Quest now.
Right.
So that was really a big thing, right? And so, of course, I always had my hand in that. So when they had this big thing, they wanted me to do the press event. And then the president at the time was a good friend of mine. He was like, he knew what I was up to. He asked me, he's like, what do you think about doing a Final Fantasy concert? And so I was like, sure, let's do it. And so that was where it all kind of came together.
Yeah.
They gave me pretty much a blank check to create a show, and that was where I did it, and that was where it started.
So you'd had this idea for a long time of like, somehow these two things have to come together.
I kind of, I did and I didn't, because I didn't think it was really, when you're working in that type of environment, there's not a lot of risky business.
Right.
And when you have a genre of music that's so, in the very beginning stages, when no one even knows about it, and the only people that are talking about it are comparing it to elevator music or Muzak, it's kind of a hard egg to crack, right? So I was lucky, and of course, when you start anything off, if someone else is paying the bill, and you're able to hire the LA Phil, and you're able to rent the Walt Disney Concert Hall, and then you're able to do before that, you have a press event, and you're transitioning into a concert the same day. That was kind of that was where it all started. So that was in 2004, and I'm 39 now. So when I did that, I was in my late, just after my mid-20s. But I was doing all that since I was 18, 19 years old.
Wow.
Leading up to that point.
Yeah.
So, I didn't know shit. Excuse my language, but I knew enough.
Yeah.
And what I didn't know, I made up for in my enthusiasm and my knowledge of video games and my knowledge of just knowing the right people, and so, we were able to do everything right on that first show, and that was really what kind of proved that this concept could work. Whenever you have a sold-out show that sells out in like 3 days, and you have the president of the LA Phil is quoted in the LA Times as saying it's a virtual riot at the box office, and she also was the president of the New York Phil, so her credibility is none other, right?
Yeah.
In that genre. So that was really just kind of all the stars aligning, and that was really that was when I really was a believer.
Yeah.
I should say I was a believer when we went on sale that first day, and by the third, and we went on sale I think on a Friday, and then by Sunday we were completely sold out, and it was like, and everyone was hailing me as like this amazing,
No pressure.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the overnight success.
Right. It was truly
There's
an
like
overnight success.
Yeah.
Truly an overnight.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you right now that success was, these. I still remember the orchestra members. They were so snooty and so obnoxious, and they were just so. They were so against it, and it was just like. But now you fast forward to where we're at now, and I got orchestras lining up, we've done over, in the last 2 years, we will have done almost 200 shows all over the world with this product. Yeah. So, I just blessed. And, but, I've kind of done the biggest games, It doesn't really get any bigger than Final Fantasy and Zelda.
Yeah.
And,
do you feel like there's another, like, there was another game that you'd want to do, like, there's like a dream?
I don't think there's really another title that I think would really be that could really stand on its own the way that these two titles do, because I think stories. The thing about Zelda, I think, which is such a great title, is because its story is so easy to understand. You know what I mean?
Very universal hero's journey, sort of. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that is something that I think it's very easy to connect to. I've thought about Castlevania, like, because I love Castlevania. I've always loved Castlevania. I've always played Castlevania. I still play Castlevania. But I think that's more appropriate for another concert, which I created, which was more of a collection of, bestsellers, but not necessarily a franchise. Castlevania is a franchise that's been around 30 years. I don't necessarily think that but it's interesting because I know Kingdom Hearts just came out with a new concert. And I did the first ever launch of that game in Los Angeles at the W Hotel. I still remember that. I'm friends with Tetsuya Nomura, but I would never have thought that they would be selling out concerts, with Kingdom Hearts. I'm still a little bit in disbelief, to be honest with you. I'm really surprised that they've been able to be so successful. Pokemon Symphonic Evolutions is another show that is, I think that's a generation thing. I think it skipped a lot of people, and I don't think the audience that they're looking to attract necessarily has quite the disposable income that someone of a Final Fantasy or a Zelda, for that matter, would be
Right.
interested in. So only time will tell. But I just think that for me personally, the goal for me is to create something that is intellectual, something that is musically driven, and then of course the visual is something that is more or less an accompaniment, but doesn't necessarily need to be there, but it is there. You know what I mean? And so I have a couple more ideas that I want to do, and I won't really rest until I do them, but it's not really up to me.
Right.
You know, and I work for one of the toughest, clients in terms of just, they beat to the sound of their own drum. They don't really, they're not trying to they're not trying to please anybody.
Yeah.
Except for the fans, of course. I mean, they work hard to please fans, but they're not. I mean, Dream Show would be something more or less along the lines of like a Nintendo All-Star Show, or something that can present all of their first-party titles. That would be a very cool concert.
That would be really cool.
And
Yeah.
I want to do it, and I pitched it, and I'm trying to do it, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Very cool.
They have some things that they need to work out, which I hope they do soon.
Yeah. Like, what is it like working with Nintendo? Like, is that are they, because again, like you said, they're very unique, right? And they sometimes seem to zig when everybody expects them to zag, and that kind of a thing. What's that like?
I'm always just kind of, it's just, I think if I didn't understand Japanese culture and how Japanese business works, I would probably be banging my head on the wall. But I did that. I did that when I was young.
Yeah.
And probably what cost me my license with Square Enix, because I didn't really understand the dynamics, and I didn't really understand. The bottom line is this: they're video game manufacturers. They are video game producers. Music is not their core business, and I take what I can get because I understand that.
Yeah.
I wish it was as important to them as a video game release. A soundtrack release to me is as important, but of course to them,
Right.
it's not really the main driver. So, but to answer your question, what it's like to work with them, when they're on, it's great. But when I'm out on my own and I'm on my own, and I have to be very resourceful, and I can't rely on a lot of the things that you would expect.
So you almost get the stamp of approval, and then
you're on your own.
Yeah.
Kind of on your own.
Interesting.
It really is. And that's why I've been working so hard, because I kind of knew going into this that that's what I have to do. I have to create a brand that can kind of live on its own. And when they want to get behind it and they want to, promote it or I'm grateful, but I can't rely on that. So
Right.
it can be frustrating. I've been doing this long enough though, where I've got a thick skin, and I also feel like I think I've kind of, like, for example, I was the first one to ever do a show in Edmonton. I've kind of created my own. I've been able to create markets, and I've been able to create successful models for success that I think enable us to have these shows in these places. But it wasn't. I mean, it's not with the help. I mean, it is with the help of Nintendo. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like everyone thinks that that they send out an email blast or they do this and do that. Well, if it was that easy, man, I wouldn't be spending $20,000 on a market to promote it.
Yeah.
So it can be frustrating. It can be frustrating.
Yeah.
But like I said, when it's great, it's great. I was in Kyoto, and I was with Miyamoto, and I was with Mr. Aonuma and Mr. Kondo, and we were doing videos. Those are highlights. Those are
awesome.
treasury moments. Those are lifetime moments that I will always have. But at the end of the day, I wish I could do that. And I wish I could continue to do that to update the show and keep it relative and and do that. But
I was going to say, you probably don't have any. They aren't sending you stuff just like, oh, by the way, here's all this great new stuff from the new Zelda game. And
I have to initiate everything.
Yeah.
I remember I did a Stephen Colbert. We were on the late night with Stephen Colbert.
Okay.
And like I couldn't believe it, but they were releasing a new game, Triforce Heroes, and like I didn't even get the game. I got the case.
They sent you just the case with no game in it?
They because it was for the segment.
Right.
And I didn't even have the game in it. I'm like,
you could have let me play it.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just an example, But,
Yeah.
It's not I have what's valuable, and I have a license, and I have an exclusive license. So
Yeah.
as long as I have that, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good, and I'll continue to knock it out of the park, because that's what I want to do.
Very cool.
I love Zelda. I mean, it's created my livelihood, So, I'm very grateful for that. So
there's something in the story that to get a little philosophical, it speaks to people. People have struggles, and challenges. Somehow that story, like you were saying before, Zelda can help people get through things. And I think maybe the symphony kind of tells the story too, I assume.
that's the hope.
And like, what's your ultimate? When do you know you've succeeded with the symphony?
With me, I don't know if I'll ever feel that way. I'm not very content. So,
Like, what do you want people to come away from that with?
Well, I personally want anyone who comes to see a show, I'd really like them to be the advocate. I'd like for them to be the promoter. I'd like for them to tell the story of their experience. Like a lot of people who walk through these doors, this is their first concert, let alone a symphony performance. And it just happens to be one of the most famous popular culture icons in the history of the world. So for me to be a part of that, I want them to share that, because at the end of the day, that's the best form of advertising, right? Is to be able to talk about their experience, For me, I get so much satisfaction of just hanging in the corner and watching these people. Like, this brings those people together. This enables these people to wear a costume if they want and come to a place and feel comfortable. Like, I don't think there's any other place in the world, that can provide that. This is a place where people can, just feel a part of, like this experience, So, I mean, that's that takeaway. The idea for me is for people to be able to share their experience, and I encourage that, and I want them to do that. And we haven't gotten we don't get very much negative. It really is a positive. And I think there's so many positive things that come out of this experience. I mean, what would the world be like if we didn't have symphonies?
Well, I think it introduces a type of music to people that wouldn't normally go to the symphony.
Right.
But,
well, definitely.
I find it odd that the musical community has some hesitation there, because really it's promoting their product, which is symphonic music, and really at a high level. I mean, these are not local musicians, they're not high school kids playing. These are professionals that are at a very high level.
You hit the nail on the head. And so whenever you have professional organizations, they're mobilized. They have unions. They have things that, and this is, I don't want, without getting into too much of the kind of the behind the scenes. I mean, these are very costly productions.
Yes.
I mean, so whereas you have an artist and a piano singing on the stage, I have almost 100 musicians on the stage. Every one of those musicians has to get paid. And then I also
expenses.
I also have the visual component. So the reason why you don't see too many of these productions is not a lot of people know what they're doing, and not a lot of people have the financial resources and the appetite for risk. What I've tried to do over the course of my career is I'm minimizing risk. And the only reason why I'm able to minimize the risk is because I have a formula, and but not a lot of people, and that's why a lot of people, they don't have that appetite, they can't afford it. And it's also kind of an unknown, right?
In the end, it's got to be worth it, or you're never
Right,
going to do
exactly.
it again. So, yeah.
So, I mean, those are just some of the reasons.
I think really the musicians are introducing people to classical music in a way, like people who wouldn't normally go to a symphony.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's, in a way, it's promoting their product in a bigger sense.
Oh, I totally agree. And where else, like, for example, you look at our touring schedule, like, what other, they spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on tours with just kiosk. If we were to create a system where they could piggyback on that and utilize this concourse rather than going into a mall and they have 2,500 bands, I think that's more valuable and that's the main event. I mean,
it's interesting that Nintendo, again, that you're going to Nintendo every time when there's a lot of, like, I kind of expected, like, oh, here's all this promotional stuff, stand-ups and whatever, right? And it's just like, oh, here's a few things, and
I got my merchandise and I got my show.
Yeah.
And I have commercials that were provided, and I have some materials that have been provided by Nintendo, but everything else is created by me.
Yeah.
With their approval, of course. But, this is all created by me, my production company.
Yeah.
I didn't just get these off a hard drive. I had to assemble all of this. I had to assemble all the charts. I had to assemble all the printing. I had to assemble all the talent that, and I had to create all this. And at the end of the day, I don't own it.
It's a lot of work for something you don't own.
Yeah.
Right. So, but it's worth it to me. I've been very successful. I'm not going to kid you. I've had a lot of success with this. I've been very fortunate, and but again, this is one of the only. I think, in my opinion, this is one of the only brands in this genre, video game music, that could really be able to consistently, day in and day out, travel the world and be able to have success. I think some of the other titles, and you might have some initial success in some markets with a new show like Kingdom Hearts, for example. But I think that's not really something that's going to sustain.
What is it about Zelda specifically that you think speaks to people? Like,
well, I think the fact that they're still relevant. It's a title that we're in 30 years, and like. I'm as excited as ever to see Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Like, I've never been more excited about a game.
Totally.
I've never been more excited about a game, and I'm 39 years old. And I can remember when games were coming out, but I've never had the anticipation that I've had with, and that kind of goes back to your question about kind of this zig and zag, kind of like the way that they're going about how they're doing this is kind of awkward. But I'm still excited as hell.
Yeah.
And I'm like it's highly anticipated. It's like so ridiculous.
It's like there's so much again, their weird way of doing it is almost building that anticipation itself, where it's like, I haven't even seen it on the NX yet, and that's probably where I'm going to be playing it, and who knows what's going on with that. And
I know, and I was actually reading recently, because I'm very conscious, because any misstep or misfire that I have, it could potentially jeopardize everything that I build. But when I see, like, for example, of a Pokemon company holding a press event and they're talking about, and they're making an announcement about how, they're talking about the NX and how it's going to be, and I'm like, and they're also talking about release dates, right? Or it had, like, there's one I heard of recently was it was Nintendo of Europe announced that it's going to be March 2017. They announced that recently. Yeah. And I thought it was pretty. I was like, good, you're gonna get.
Somebody somewhere said something.
Somewhere is gonna get their head chopped up.
I don't know if it was some intern somewhere. Who knows? Right? Like,
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I was just thinking to myself, heads are going to roll, because I've fortunately for me, I haven't had too many, but I've had other people in my camp do some things that I had to let them go, just to disassociate myself, because I can't, But it's an honor. It's truly a privilege to be able to work with Nintendo, and to be doing at this level with Nintendo, and they continue to support me in the ways that may not be monetarily, but I feel like just by them giving me this license has given me so much freedom and so much autonomy to be able to take the show anywhere I want in the world and be able to deliver what I think is just one of the most wonderful things I could ever ask for. To see the joy, the happiness, you here today, you two, a generation, a father-son. You're gonna see that. You're gonna not only see a father-son, you're gonna see a grandfather, a father, and a son.
I've got a son at home, and I was like, it would be interesting. He's 5 right now, but a few years from now, that's totally the kind of thing, passing it on. And he's already at home. He's got his 2DS, and he's playing the crap out of Pokemon and, all that kind of stuff, right? It's like, no, you can't play this for 3 hours a day. I'm sorry, right?
He's not quite to Zelda yet.
Yeah, exactly.
In a few years, he will be.
What's
My
that?
daughter just started playing Majora's Mask.
Oh, wow.
She's second funny.
Yeah.
She cracked me up. We were on I took her on tour, and we were in Disney World, and I busted out Majora's Mask 3D, and she got into it, man. And she was like, "Dad, I can't remember where this mask is. Where is it?" And she's like, it was just hecka cute. And when we were kids, we didn't have, the internet. We didn't have YouTube. We couldn't do playthroughs. We had guides, but the last thing my parents wanted to do was buy me a guide on top of a game.
Well, Majora's Mask, it's okay, follow this person around town for 3 days, and that kind of stuff.
72
You get
hours.
stuck and go to the playground.
Yeah.
See what you can find out.
I know, but and she was asking me, "Dad," I was like, "Just go online." Go online. I was like, "You will find the answer."
That's
but no,
fair.
So it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I love it.
Cool.
I can't imagine me doing anything different.
Yeah, right on. Cool. Well, we want to be mindful of your time,
Yeah.
but I guess one last question. If you had to pick out of all of the history of the Zelda franchise, do you have a favorite? What is the one that you really gravitate towards the most?
Well, my playing days are kind of over. More or less, I'm not really playing, although I did play Between Worlds. And I did play Triforce Heroes. And I did play a lot of 3DS games.
I imagine doing a lot of traveling.
Yeah. But I have a Wii U. I play Super Smash. I'm kind of getting out of the Zelda realm, but I think for me personally, Skyward Sword was a pretty big deal. I think a lot of that game I felt like I was kind of somewhat a part of, only because it was the first time ever that Nintendo had hired a company to produce a CD as part of a bundle that would be released with that. So,
right, yeah.
So I did that.
Oh, that's cool.
I did the orchestral CD. So that was something that, in my whole life, I could have never imagined being, and then for me to be a part of that, it was pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome.
And that small little, and that was special.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Right on. Awesome.
Sorry, what do you need?
That's okay.
Sign this real quick. I'm going to donate it to Extra Life so they can do it at auction.
Cool.
This is good up here. Maybe it's lighter. Or here. That's a good spot too.
Jacob's been involved in my show since 2005, 2006.
Nice.
I started up as the tape op with Play, so I was queuing all the videos.
Okay, cool.
Graduated to the front office. It's good.
Nice.
He also grew up with me too in my hometown. So we've been able to raise our families through this career path that we've come on.
That's super cool. Right on.
Yeah, we take this very seriously. this is our livelihood. So
Yeah.
and it's enabled us to be able to have families and provide a lot of joy at the same time. So, but I think Skyward Sword is probably the game that I feel like a lasting connection with. But I mean, Breath of the Wild's coming out. I'm going to be really excited about that. I already know. I probably will spend about a week on that and play it,
Just
when
get
it comes
just
out.
like planned illness sort of thing. I plan on
Maybe
being
come
sick.
back to Banff. I was in Banff this summer.
Oh yeah,
Maybe that might be a good place to kind of get lost.
just kind of hole up in a hotel
Like
or
Louise.
something. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, no, but yeah, absolutely. I'm very lucky, and I get to meet all kinds of cool people too.
Yeah,
The only thing I would say that I wish I was more, I wish that I was more like some of these other people where I'm like, I had like 100,000 followers and I had people, because I do some pretty cool stuff. Like I'm an entrepreneur too. I don't just have a production company. I also have a coffee business, and I do the things that I love, and that's kind of been my MO, right? I always want to be in doing something that I love, and I've been fortunate enough since I was young to be able to do what I love. But I'm at a point now where I'm almost 40, and I want to be able to, mentor people. I want to be able to provide people a lot of guidance, if you will, and I wish I was a little bit more active on some of these social media and things like that, but
right.
because I do want to have commercial success.
And that's such a big part of it nowadays is social media and just almost having that, I don't know if personal brand is the right word, but
Right.
just being able to kind of have that reach.
Right.
That's where people seem to gravitate towards
I
nowadays,
know.
right?
It amazes me because I know how hard I work.
Yeah.
And I know how big, but I have friends that have more followers than my Zelda Symphony Twitter. And I'm thinking to myself, how is that possible? What do they do? Do they pay someone to get those followers?
Yeah, well, and half of it's like pictures of sandwiches, and who knows, right? Like, we
Right, I
just need
know.
to start posting pictures of sandwiches.
Right.
This is the best Zelda sandwich you ever,
I don't know what I'm going to do. I was just talking about that with my buddy. I was like, I have a friend actually who has 10,000 followers, and I don't know how he got 10,000 followers.
Yeah.
But my Zelda Twitter account only has over 14,000. And that's almost a half a decade to build.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow. But maybe I'm not doing. But at the end of the day, I only care about one thing, and that's having successful shows. That's having great shows, and that's having people enjoy the experience, and they keep coming back. Because this show's always different. No matter what someone says, this show will never be the same show. If I come back to the city for a second, a third, or fourth time, every time I come to that city, there's always going to be a different element to it. Whether it's the merchandise, whether it's 2 new pieces, or, for example, Triforce Heroes wasn't a part of the concert last time we were here. It's part of this concert this time.
Cool.
Twilight Princess HD. We have a whole movement, Twilight Princess.
Cool.
So that's all updated.
When you look at the Breath of the Wild footage, it'd be exciting to see that up on the big screen.
I'm chomping at the bit to try to get my hands on that right now.
Yeah.
I'm like every week. I'm like, can I get some? Can I get some? Can I get this? Can I do this? Can I do this? I'm putting together all these. And I'm
Feels
like,
like so much right now. They're on total lockdown too.
I'm exhausted.
It seems like. Yeah.
I'm exhausted. I can't get anything.
Someday.
I know it'll happen. It'll happen.
It's made for a big screen.
They just extended my license, so I'll be touring effectively through the end of 2017.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So I think that's
look
kind of an
forward to-
indicator that they want to do some things in 2017. I just don't know when. I've heard March.
Well, that's what they've said for the NX, right? I think they've said NX March, but then they're like, and Zelda will be on the NX, right? And it's
So that's what they're launching it with. Apparently,
Yeah.
it's Pokemon and Zelda are going to be the two titles that really.
which will be that'll be looking forward to hearing more about it. So.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to tonight. It's
You're
gonna be
gonna
awesome. It's gonna be great.
I'm proud of it, man. You're gonna love it. It's a great show. It's very cohesive. It's very, it's a very well written music. Visuals are all timely. Like everything about it is in sync. So
Very cool.
It's funny because it's nostalgic, for us. I mean, that's stuff that we played as kids. I mean, Zach played, was it Oracle of Seasons or Ages?
I remember Oracle of Seasons was one of the first ones that I played.
To death. I mean, I've played the original Game Boy Titans. I've been working on Minish Cap, stuck on one of the bosses.
I remember there was.
But at the same time, it makes you excited for the future because Breath of the Wild's out there. And you look at it and think, wow, if somebody told me 30 years ago that we'd be looking at this.
Right.
And that's what we'd be playing someday.
I know.
Wow.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
It's remarkable. I'm liking it. I'm liking the direction too. I think the idea of an open air type game with the Legend of Zelda game is it's like music to your ears, right? Because how many times have you wanted to just kind of go off and explore in Hyrule? Mm-hmm. Just kind of just get lost a little bit, kind of maybe, but now you can do that.
Yeah, and they've added so many elements from different other types of games, more Western RPGs and stuff like that, and adding all of those in there. It's, again, the exploration piece, right? And it just seemed like watching all that stuff coming out of E3, I was just sitting there like, holy cow, they're very clearly limiting what they're showing us. It's literally this small area on this huge map. And yet, even within that small area, look at all that can happen. Imagine what this whole game is going to be like.
I saw some really cool playthroughs.
Yeah.
With Bill Trennan, and he was right there, and I can even. His face says it all too.
Yeah.
Watching Bill. Are you familiar with Bill Trennan?
Yeah.
He's my guy. He's the guy who I deal with. Just watching his face, watching someone else play the game. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh my god, that's so cool.
Yeah.
This is so cool. And he's a huge Zelda fan too.
Yeah.
So he's a huge Nintendo fan, obviously, but he's a huge Zelda fan too.
It's so interesting to watch the guys from all those Treehouse guys, because they very clearly, this has been all right, I gotta get to the Treehouse or whatever, and just I can only imagine what it's like waiting for. All right, here's the current build of the new Zelda game, and just receiving it and that excitement for them.
Absolutely.
As well.
Well, I'm in that same boat.
Yeah.
I'm not first party, but I'm third party, but I'm kind of first party.
Yeah.
I'm anxious. I'm so anxious. I just want to be able to have that next element for my show.
Yeah.
Selfishly, I'm I want to be able to include it because I want to give fans their first taste of it. But what better taste of it? Even if it's just a preview. Even if I just take that piano piece that they do with the sound effects and just perform that live with the symphony to the visuals and be enough. You know what I mean?
Just enough to
people
what
are going to be looking for it.
Right. And I want to use it because,
at some point you want to be able to give it to them.
It would be nice to have it. Just even if it's a 2-minute piece, just something. For them to tangible, they can feel and hear and just talk about it even further.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Hopefully, what happens is when you work with Nintendo, is they really Nintendo of America is very sensitive to the people who are working on the game in Japan. They don't want to disrupt. They don't want to delay development. Any time away at all, even a second, is they don't want to do it. So they just tell you ahead of time that this is probably not until January.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn.
That's
That's a whole. That's 55 shows from now.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the same time, it kind of feeds the fever.
Yeah, I know, but for me personally, I can feed the tickets.
Yeah.
Ticket sales.
Yeah.
That would be.
Well, and then you would be feeding the fever back as well, right?
I would be giving it back. I'd be giving that much more enthusiasm.
I think it goes back to what you were saying about Japanese culture, though.
I think so.
And
they don't care about ticket
culture,
sales.
their patience is a lot more abundant than it is in North America. We're very impatient people.
Right.
But in Japan, it's almost things get given to you as a gift.
Right.
In the time that the giver wants.
Right.
And you graciously accept it when it comes. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, patience is one of the strongest virtues of that culture. Patience.
And I think that's why we have trouble with Nintendo sometimes, Because we want to know all the details, and
Yeah.
they're not coming.
Yeah.
But eventually they do.
They'll be there. And when
Yeah.
they're there, we're all going to be in Zelda heaven.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But no, I'm glad you guys came.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, well, definitely let me know what your reaction is after the show.
Totally. Absolutely.
If you have any contacts in Quebec City or anyone else in Canada, or if you know anyone in Calgary, we have a concert there tomorrow too. So.
Cool.
And then Vancouver, of course. Hopefully you can spread the word or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to definitely encourage people to, if they like what they see here tonight, come to Calgary tomorrow.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah.
I don't know how many people will come. We're competing with Drake tonight. I'm just kidding. I know who Drake is.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
at the new arena.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
His second night. He had one last night too. So
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. It's not competition.
I was gonna say I don't know if there's much overlap
Be
there.
surprised. There are
Yeah, that's
lots of
probably true.
competitions,
That's
man.
probably true.
I can tell you, in Montreal when I was there recently, I was amazed at how many people had Zelda tattoos. Everywhere I seemed to go,
Oh,
it
yeah.
seemed like it. I was like, Triforce. Everywhere. It's like, what? It's pretty cool though.
Cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, man. Really appreciate it. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time. Coming.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Keep in touch.
Will do.
Have fun tonight.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Nintendo Dad.